Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. A judge blocks Indiana's abortion ban a week after it took effect. Just ahead, why the judge temporarily halted the ban, and a legal expert joins us to learn more of what could happen next. Indiana summers are only getting hotter, and those high heat days are dangerous for farm workers. Coming up, do Indiana workers need more laws to protect them from extreme heat? And the Indiana legislature is allotting $10 million for a scholarship program to help pay for special education services. But some believe the program will hurt public school funding.
Anytime those programs expand, it chips away at the funding that is available for the over 90% of children who are in our public schools.
We'll have these stories plus the latest news from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, a judge has temporarily halted Indiana's near-total abortion ban just 4 days after lawsuit hearings began challenging the legality of the ban. Brennan Smith has this report.
Article 1, Section 1 of the Indiana Constitution says that all people have a right to liberty. Judge Kelsey Hanlon says Indiana courts have recognized before that a right to bodily autonomy is part of that, and her ruling says Indiana's near-total abortion ban goes too far in restricting that right, quote, by making that autonomy largely contingent upon first experiencing extreme sexual violence or significant loss of physical health or death. Hanlon's decision also says the law's ban on clinics performing abortions, restricting the procedure only to hospitals and certain surgical centers, will limit availability, increase costs, and is unlikely to increase the safety of Hoosier women and girls. The ruling means that for now, abortion is legal for anyone up to 20 weeks without needing to provide a reason. However, the state is certain to appeal the decision and will likely ask for its impact to be halted while the appeal is ongoing, meaning the abortion ban might take effect again soon. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
Now, this comes a week after the abortion ban took effect in the state of Indiana and 3 days after hearings began in the state regarding the ban. Now, we're joined by IUPUI McKinney School of Law professor Jennifer Drobak, who specializes in sexual harassment, juvenile law, as well as family law, which includes abortion law. Welcome to the show, Professor.
Thank you so much.
So let's just start about this preliminary injunction against the ban. What is the judge going by? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Right. So the judge in this case focused on liberty, which is really important because it's a very broad decision which really guarantees the right of all Hoosiers, not just women who are going to become pregnant. And it says that we all have a right of liberty built into our Constitution, which includes the right of bodily integrity. And she includes family planning and says, no matter whether you say it's privacy or bodily autonomy or a bundle of rights, it's liberty. And we enjoy that here in Indiana.
So the abortion ban was enforced just last week. Is this unusual for injunction to occur so soon after?
Not necessarily. Some injunctions go into effect before the law even takes effect, and they're stopped before they go into effect. In this particular case, there was a delay, so the law went into effect. It's possible that after this decision is appealed, that the law will go into effect again, but it's really difficult when lawmakers or jurists and courts allow for this flip-flopping of on again, off again, because it puts people in jeopardy, particularly the doctors who don't know where they are in the limbo of back and forth, and they could be subject to serious criminal penalties if they get it wrong.
Mm-hmm. So this is a preliminary hold. Does this indicate anything about what the ruling will eventually say?
Well, it's supposed to. And the judge issued her decision based on her belief in 4 different factors that the plaintiffs were likely to prevail ultimately. So she wouldn't have put the injunction and joined the law unless she had thought that there was a significant possibility that the plaintiffs would win through these various procedural challenges. So I think that's good news on the one hand. Another reason why I think that there's a possibility for ultimate success is who can argue with liberty? You might challenge how liberty is defined, but liberty really does include bodily integrity. It includes self-determination.
And we just have about 30 seconds left. I guess what happens next? Of course, there's another legal challenge seeking to halt the abortion ban that violates Indiana's Religious Freedom Restoration Act, too.
Right. So there are a variety of challenges. This is not the only one. This one will likely get appealed. And all of these will likely percolate up to the Supreme Court. And it's anyone's guess as to whether a court will release the law to go back into effect, but I hope it does not.
Okay, Professor, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, before we head into the fall, it's hard to forget Indiana's summers are only getting hotter, and those high heat days are especially dangerous for farm workers and other people who work outside. But as Indiana Public Broadcasting's Rebecca Thiel reports, right now there are few laws to protect Indiana farm workers from extreme heat.
In August, farm workers filed into the basement of a former church in Odin at the end of a long day of picking watermelons. It's still about 90 degrees outside and feels even hotter. Even in this small room, a fan is struggling to keep everyone cool. Once the workers get settled, Miriam Sonderberg of the nonprofit Proteus starts a training on heat and pesticides in Spanish. She asks for a volunteer to lay down on the floor like someone who's just passed out from the heat. She asks another what they would do. Sonderberg suggests bringing him water, and once he can sit up, asking him some questions to make sure he's okay. Sonderberg tells workers they need to drink water, take breaks, wear loose-fitting clothing, and watch out for each other. Sounds easy, right? But some farm workers feel like they can't do these things.
They believe that drinking more water will make them go to the bathroom more often, and taking more breaks means less hours worked, meaning less hours paid, or even getting in the mindset of the employer, knowing that, like, oh, these people are going to take breaks too long, so I'm not going to employ them again next year.
But not taking a break could mean risking your life. There are few laws to protect farm workers in extreme heat, and though Proteus's heat training is free, it isn't mandatory. Agricultural workers are 35 times more likely to die from the heat than workers in other industries. In July of 2020, a young man named Jorge collapsed in the heat while detasseling corn. He came to Northwest Indiana to work alongside his dad. It was only his second day on the job.
From what I understood, they didn't have a plan in place, meaning that, 3 go in, 3 come out, 5 go in, 5 come out. And he started getting sick, and he did tell someone that he wasn't feeling good. And by the time they found him, by the time it came to it, even when the paramedics, he was already he was already gone.
Rivera was a farm worker herself. She says it can be hard for corn detasselers to even breathe with the heat and all the clothing they wear, and some of them might feel pressured by their employer to work through breaks to meet deadlines. Researchers at Emory University found about half of the farm workers they studied in Florida had body temperatures at or above 100 degrees. essentially a fever.
And oftentimes the symptoms that they report are, muscle pain, nausea, very much the same symptoms that we have when we have a fever.
Chica says some workers are dehydrated so often it does short-term damage to their kidneys. It could even be causing chronic kidney disease, but researchers aren't sure. Right now, California, Washington, and Oregon are the only states that have laws that specifically protect outdoor workers from extreme heat. Several other states have tried to pass such laws and failed. Chica says people in the agricultural industry sometimes argue these changes would be too difficult to implement, and that they already have ways of keeping their workers safe.
But if they were already put in place by the growers and the people, the businesses that they represent, then we wouldn't have these statistics that say that people are dying from heat-related deaths at such alarming rates.
Indiana's Occupational Safety and Health Administration can't have rules stricter than federal ones, and the federal government only has guidelines right now. That leaves many farm workers in Indiana unprotected. OSHA is working on federal heat standards, but Chica says there's no telling when or if those will come out. In the meantime, she says, farm workers continue to die in the heat. The United States needs farm workers. Without them, we wouldn't eat. We spoke with a man from Guanajuato, Mexico, who asked that we not give his name. He's been coming to Indiana on a visa to pick broccoli and corn. He says it's not easy working in this heat. And if we value that work, we need to start valuing workers' lives. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
Farm workers and their employers can find resources through Indiana Legal Services and its Workers' Rights Protection Project. Well, we're joined now by Holden Absher for the latest headlines from around the state. Hello, Holden.
Hello, Joe. Bloomington police arrested Eli Swartzentruber on Tuesday after a 7-hour standoff. He fled into a storm drain and threatened police he was armed and he would shoot. The suspect is now in Monroe County Jail, and he's been charged with attempted battery with a deadly weapon and intimidation. The investigation is ongoing, and more charges could be filed. A 20-year-old IU student riding an electric scooter was struck by a vehicle early Sunday morning and later died from his injuries. The driver of the vehicle, 22-year-old Madeline Howard, was taken into custody and charged with 3 felonies, leaving the scene of an accident, causing death while operating a vehicle while intoxicated, and reckless homicide. She is currently out on bail, and her hearing is scheduled for September 30th. The Indiana Graduate Workers Coalition Coordinating Committee recommended to members Friday that they vote no on their upcoming vote to strike this Sunday. And still, they recommended granting the committee authority to set a future strike deadline should negotiations with Bloomington Faculty Council or University Graduate School fail.
That a one-time raise is not a permanent solution. This was the first raise. For many graduate workers, this previous raise was their first raise in 10 years.
More than 100 professors have signed a petition refusing to scab or make contingency plans if grad workers decide to strike. Several states looking to pass anti-abortion rights legislation reported upticks in women voter registration this summer. Indiana also saw increases, counting nearly 16,000 new voter registrations this May, compared to more than 3,500 the month before. Monroe County Election Central counted 96 new voter registrations the Monday following Roe v. Wade being overturned, and the most that month. Several Bloomington organizations are splitting a $15,000 grant from the National Organization of Women to fund voter registration and turnout campaign. IU student government leaders say that students do have a vested interest in being represented in local politics.
Most Bloomington boards and commissions don't have a single student serving on them. If Bloomington students turned out to vote, it's a good chance that our city would actually reflect the values and the policy changes that students want to see.
The grant will fund promotional materials, supplies, and translation services. The Bloomington Police Department received the National CALEA Reaccreditation Award, acknowledging their commitment to community-oriented policing. This is the second time that BPD has been awarded this Tier 1 accreditation status. Only about 5% of United States law enforcement agencies are CALEA accredited. That is all the time we have for headlines this week, Joe. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Holden. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. A program that provides scholarships for special education services has some concern it will hurt public school funding. And although IU Bloomington is named one of the best LGBTQ-friendly universities, it doesn't mean the campus is done improving. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front line
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
Life is full of choices, and right now your favorite member benefit, Passport, is offering more choices for you to stream.
Welcome to the club.
It's a beautiful thing with cooking.
Gotta let it cook, but I keep wanting to smell it.
Travel.
And here we are.
Oh, yeah!
Documentaries.
I realized I could change the world.
And so much more. The choice is yours with Passport on the PBS Video app.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The Indiana legislature has allotted $10 million for a scholarship program that will help pay for state-approved special education services. Patrick McGurr has this story.
Hoosier students with special needs have a new program to help pay for state-approved educational services. The Indiana Education Scholarship Account Program now gives parents 90% of the state funding that would have gone to the public school their child could have attended. The legislature allotted $10 million for the first year of the Scholarship Account Program. Each student's amount is based on special needs status and school district. Amounts range from just under $6,000 to just over $18,000. These tax-free funds may be used for educational services, including tutoring, classes, and therapies. Though funds may be used to buy services from public schools, students are not eligible if they are enrolled in a public school or public charter school. Representative Bob Baining wrote the bill that created the program and is a major advocate for school choice. He wants more discussion of education savings accounts and other vouchers.
COVID kind of opened up things and really shared with the world that we have some struggles here. I mean, a number of fronts. Clearly, our academic progress isn't where we, I think most people would want to see it, especially for kids in poverty, that we clearly have to do more.
Jacqueline Guglielmo is executive director of the program. She says it helps parents who may be struggling to afford educational services for their special needs students.
It's really a blessing for them because now they can afford to access tutoring, other educational services, classes, courses, even transportation to and from therapies.
The program received input from several Indiana groups, including school choice organization EdChoice and special needs advocacy group, the Arc of Indiana. Robert Enlow is the president and CEO of EdChoice. He says roughly 270 students are participating in the program now.
What this is allowing us to do is to create more and more tools for more and more families to be able to individualize and customize their education for their children.
Hannah Carlock directs public policy for the Arc of Indiana. While the Arc participated in planning the program, it remained neutral when the bill came before the legislature.
We want to make sure that private schools and public schools still had enough funds to keep special education on the table and that students were receiving the fullest special education experience that they could.
Some observers are concerned, including former state superintendent for public education Jennifer McCormick.
It's very frustrating because obviously traditional public schools are struggling for money. And I know you could say we never have enough, but there are a lot of schools out there that are just really trying to make it work.
And Carlock said some parents are struggling with all the decisions that have to be made.
It's a little daunting for parents. So we had one parent give a great analogy of when I was sending my child to school, it was originally just like me getting in the car and driving. But now I have to build my car before I drive it.
While supporters say this is another tool for parents, some Hoosiers believe it will hurt public school funding.
And here's a picture of Cody on pajama day at our neighborhood public school. And this is the emotional support dog, the therapy dog that the kids get to see.
Indianapolis resident Carla Schmid has a son with autism and developmental delays. A former educator herself, Schmid opposes the program, considering it the newest example in a decade of policies chipping away at public school funding.
Anytime there is a program like the education scholarships accounts or increased in vouchers or increased funding for charter schools, anytime those programs expand, it chips away at the funding that is available for the over 90% of children who are in our public schools. And the first ones that are harmed are our special needs children. It's hard enough to find assistants right now in the classroom to help support our special needs kiddos.
Schmidt is thrilled with the progress her son Cody has made with the support he's received at his public school.
He's in a mainstream classroom right now, which is a testament to our public schools and the resources that are in place and the mechanisms and accountability that is working. And so he speaks, he's doing his homework, he's getting A's and B's, he's talking more every day.
Andrea Jan is an IUPUI professor. Her son Huxley has autism. She too opposes the program. Her son attends an IPS public school where he has a team of autism specialists, therapists, and teachers trained in special needs. Jane says the scholarship account program does not provide enough money to pay for all the support Huxley receives now.
Huxley is a very expensive kid. Public school is the only option for him because the educators and therapists who work with him are a robust and complex team of experts. They are outstanding, dedicated professionals, and they just can't do their jobs if their public school funding continues to be increasingly stolen.
Jan says that this program is part of a larger trend to defund public education and that no private school could offer all the services her son receives from his public school. She says Huxley was suspended from one private school and expelled from another private school because they were unwilling to put more resources into meeting his needs. McCormick warns that more school choice and voucher expansions will come up in the next legislative session.
I really think we're going to probably see a universal voucher program that really opens all of this wide open to anybody.
In response to concerns about the trends, Boehning told WFIU in a statement that these accounts, quote, empower parents to select services that meet their child's education needs, whether that's a traditional public school, public charter school, non-public school, or other providers. He added that parents choose different education options for many reasons, including academic and social issues such as bullying. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Patrick McGurr.
Now, Boehning says that every family should have the resources and opportunity to make their own choices for their student, regardless of income or zip code. IU Bloomington has been named one of the best LGBTQ+ friendly colleges and universities in the U.S. by Campus Pride. But that doesn't mean the campus is done improving. Kelly Lichter has this report.
Campus Pride is a national nonprofit organization which, last month, chose IU Bloomington as one of the 40 colleges and universities to receive this recognition. This is not the first time IUB has been on Campus Pride's list. But many students on campus feel IUB shouldn't be on this list, especially as an Indiana-run university in the wake of transgender sport controversies in the state legislature.
I think if the assumption is that receiving this award, there is no level of anti-LGBTQ issues or anything on this campus is really a false assumption. That's going to happen.
Bruce Smale, the director of the LGBTQ+ Culture Center, has been with the center since the beginning. Even though he became director in early 2020, he attended graduate school here in the 1990s when the center opened.
It was a huge protest by the state legislature. They did not want to use any state funding to support the launch of this center.
But now, he says the campus can stand up to intolerance.
I think the difference is that we do have support organizations that are able to provide the necessary support if something happens on the campus.
For him, the center allows students a place to not only find LGBTQ+ resources, but also a place to address intersectionality in these communities.
Being a person of color running the center, it also kind of creates some opportunities to really run the center from a very intersectional kind of opportunity.
Out of the thousands of U.S. universities, the IU LGBTQ+ Culture Center is one of the only 300 such collegiate centers, according to LGBTcampus.org. There are still 7 states without an institution that has an LGBTQ+ Culture Center.
What's life like for students that do not have an LGBTQ+ center on their campus? Where do they go for support?
The LGBTQ plus Culture Center hosts support groups and programs, along with a library that houses LGBTQ plus media. Smale said it takes everyone to create change.
What we're trying to do on our end is kind of make sure the Bloomington and the IU campus is receptive and open to the LGBTQ plus communities.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Callie Lichter.
And after 3 straight come-from-behind victories to open the season, the Indiana football team hits the road this weekend. The Hoosiers will be facing their toughest test of the season tomorrow when they face Cincinnati, a team that made the BCS playoffs last season.
This will be our first road game, which is an important thing for us to be able to show we can handle that environment and handle the trip to be able to be at our very, very best.
Indiana lost to Cincinnati at home by 2 touchdowns last year. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.